Sāksim ar atbildi uz jautājumu, kas ir būtiskas sastāvdaļas kvalitatīvai un starptautisko biznesu interesējošai vietnei. Par to plašāk jau tūliņ runās interneta psihologs Grahams Jones.
This is my first time here in Latvia, and I already love the place. I've only been here 12 hours, but it's a super place. And you know that building, and I didn't know that building, but I was able to find out about that building because of a thing called the internet. And when I went onto the internet, and the clicker is failing to work, so there we go. When I went onto the internet, the first thing I looked for was Riga on Google. And that building appears in almost every image there is about Riga on Google. So I realized it must be a pretty famous building. But the issue is that if I type in Riga to Google, and this image comes up, wouldn't it be fantastic if, and we're going to have to go to the next slide here, if we typed in to Google your company name, or your specialist area, or your profession, or your industry, or your sector, and that came up just like that picture. So that anybody in the world who was searching for something to do with Latvia and your business, you would be the one that would come up first, and you would be all over the internet. That would be fantastic, wouldn't it? If we could achieve that. That's what we need to achieve. And so the next slide is a picture of Cambridge. So if you were to type in Cambridge onto Google, you would see this picture a great deal. This picture is a picture of King's College, Cambridge, one of the most famous buildings in the whole of the UK. And I remember this building particularly because I had to travel to Cambridge. This is a long time ago, before the internet. I had to travel to Cambridge to meet a client, and I had to catch a train. And unfortunately, all the display system to tell me where the train was going from, which platform it would go from, unfortunately that had broken. And so I didn't know which train to catch, which platform to go to. So I had to go and find a member of the railway staff and say to them, can you tell me which platform this train goes from? And I must have said it in a very special way. I must have said something like, can you tell me where the train to Cambridge goes from? I must have emphasized a word. And the person at the railway station said to me, the train, sir? And I went, yes, the train. And he said, it's just at that platform there. So I went and got on the train. And the next slide will show the kind of carriage I got into. So I got into the carriage on the train, and there I was, sitting down, and it was quite posh, and I thought, I'll go and get a cup of coffee. The train was about to leave the station. So I went to get a cup of coffee. If we could have the next slide, that'd be fantastic. I went to get a cup of coffee from my little compartment like this, and as I arrived to get a coffee, there in the coffee bar of the train was a man who was really, really smart. He had gold polished buttons. There were tablecloths on the tables. Now, I've never been on a train in Latvia, obviously, because I've only been here 12 hours. I don't know if your trains have tablecloths, men in gold uniforms. And he looked at me and he said, who are you? And I said, I'm Graham. Who are you? He said, do you realize what train this is? And I said, yes, it's the 11 o'clock train to Cambridge. And he said, yes, that's absolutely right. It is going to Cambridge. But unfortunately, it's not the ordinary train to Cambridge. Because sitting in the compartment the other side of this coffee bar is, and if we go to the next slide, we'll see who it was. We'll see who it was, honest. Her Majesty the Queen. I had somehow, by mistake, got on the royal train. And so they said, you'll have to go back to your carriage and we'll sit you down there. And what they did was 2 big men arrived, obviously security people, who said, we're going to have to lock you in. And they locked me in, and when we arrived at Cambridge, this is what we were met with. We were met with children waving Union Jacks as I got off the train. They were completely bemused as to who I was and why they were waving at me. There was this red carpet all the way down the platform, which I kind of skirted around because I thought I'd better leave that for Her Majesty. And I went off and saw my client. And I told my client this story. And Cambridge is about 2 hours from where I live. And I couldn't tell my wife until I got home. Because this was in the days, this was a long time ago, this was in the days before we had mobile phones. This was in the days before we had the internet. So it was several hours later before I could tell my wife or anybody else. Had I done that today, I would have been Facebooking it live from the train. I would have been a YouTube sensation. I would have been all over the internet. It would have been trending, #Graham on a train. Would have been everywhere. The crucial difference between life several years ago and life now is that the internet is fundamental, completely fundamental to everything everybody does. If anybody wants to know about you, your business, your industry, your sector, they go to the internet first. And here's a big problem. The big problem is that we have got so used to having so much information available to us that what we do is we look. If it doesn't give us what we want immediately, we disappear. And we move on until we can find what we want. 10 years ago, the average time that people spent on a website was 20 seconds. Today, it's 3 seconds. So as we go all around the world and see all this kind of stuff going backwards and forwards, the amount of time anybody outside Latvia who may be wanting to buy something from you that you can export to them, you have 3 seconds to convince them that you are the company they should go to. And it's worse than 3 seconds, if we can go to the next slide. It's worse than 3 seconds because these people dominate it. All these people on these slides are, thank you, all these people on these slides dominate the internet. Something like 90% of all internet traffic goes to these people. So what it means is, if your website doesn't behave like these people, then I'm afraid you miss out, because people only give you 3 seconds to be like what they expect the internet to be. I'll tell you what, if I come down here, I might be a bit nearer. There we go. This is what's happening on the internet, you see. That on the internet, 90% of what's happening is with just a few number of sites. So if you don't match those sites, I'm afraid you've got a problem. Just like me. How near do I need to be? Do I need to be all the way back here? Okay. So we've got 3 seconds. If we printed out all the stuff that you could have on the internet in 3 seconds, all the data that appears on the internet in 3 seconds, if we printed it out, that's how high the pile of paper would be. 260 kilometers high. That's how much stuff you're competing with. There's just tons and tons of information on the internet that you are competing with. 3 seconds worth, 260 kilometers high. If we printed out the internet from 2016, it would go to Pluto and back 10 times. Now that's quite a long way. There's a lot of stuff online that you're competing with. I told you it was 3 seconds, but I lied. It's actually only 0.56 of a second. How did that happen? It's only can we go to the 0.56? That'd be fantastic. It's only 0.56 of a second. We know that because when we put people in brain scanners, we can see when they make a decision. We know where you make decisions. It's right above your left eye. In your brain, the bit that makes decisions is above your left eye. And we can see that bit of your brain. When you're asked to look at a website and make a decision, do you want to stay on this website or do you want to go? We can see that decision when we put you in brain scanners being made in 0.56 of a second. That's pretty quick, because you're not consciously aware of anything in the world until 0.7 seconds. So what this means is that people are making their mind up subconsciously whether they want to stick with your website. So one of the crucial things we've got to achieve, if you want to export more of whatever it is you do, you have got to grab people outside Latvia subconsciously. So what kind of things do we need to do? Just as an indication, by the way, if we look at the next slide, then we'll see that this is Usain Bolt at the London 2012 Olympics, and very helpfully, you can see he is 0.5 seconds into his 9 and a bit seconds run. But look at his feet. His feet are still inside the starting lane. So you have to convince people that your website is the website to go to before Usain Bolt has left the starting blocks. Never mind the 9 and a bit seconds. You haven't got that time on the internet. People's attention is so low these days that we've got to grab it straight away. Anybody like this picture? I like this picture. Now, I can tell you there's some people in this room, I'll just describe this picture to you, by the way. For some of you might not be able to see this, but there is a very attractive young lady in the middle. I don't know if anybody's noticed that. And there are 4 men in their underwear either side of her. Now, some people in this room have thought, an attractive woman in the middle? I didn't know there was an attractive woman in the middle, because all they saw was 4 men in their underwear. And the people who saw the attractive woman in the middle went, 4 men in their underwear? I didn't see them. This is called inattentional blindness. You only see the things you want to see. You don't see things you don't want to see. So if we'd shoved you in a brain scanner when I showed you this picture, there would have been some of you I would know wouldn't see, your eyes wouldn't even look at the other parts of the picture, because you only see what you want to see. It's the same when people land on your website. They only see what they want to see. So if they haven't seen what they want to see when they get on your website in half a second, then I'm afraid you're in big trouble. We all think about web design, of course, when we're thinking about our websites. We think we should design them nicely, and we see all these kind of things. Unfortunately, design is not as important as you think it is. I'm sorry to the designers in here. If there are web designers here, I'm sorry, but you're not as important as something else. I know you're going to come and beat me up later, but there are other things that are more important, because we can look at websites. I think we can look at websites. We can look at websites. Yeah, there we go. This is magic, isn't it? Yeah, we can look at websites like this. This is Amazon.co.uk. It's a complete and total design disaster. Yeah? So there are web designers here going, I wish I could get hold of Amazon and redesign it to make it look good. Well, I tell you what, Amazon don't care. They don't care it looks rubbish, because that's the amount of money that it makes per second. So don't go telling me that design is the most important part of your website. It is not. It's the subconscious signal we send. The subconscious signal that Amazon sends is that it's untidy. And we as human beings associate untidy things with things that don't cost much money. You go to a smart shop, you expect to pay more money than a shop that isn't very tidy. So we expect Amazon to be relatively cheap. It isn't. There are cheaper places to go on the internet to buy things, but the way Amazon tells us that things are cheap and makes us believe they're cheap is by having an untidy website. It's that subconscious signal that makes us want to buy from them, and boy, do we buy from Amazon. So I'm going to take you through 5 things. 5 things that are really important to get your website sending those subconscious signals. We need to be convenient. And psychologically, convenience means being able to do things easily. So here's a website. Some of you may recognize this website. And there are some convenient subconscious signals on this website. So the subconscious signal of a search box. So we see the search box at the top of the page, where most of those big websites that dominate the internet have their search box. Which means that when I land on this page, I can see that if I can't find anything, I will be able to find it. There's also some signals that if I don't speak Latvian, I can see it in another language at the same point of a web page where we expect to see those little signals of language. So subconsciously, this tells us that this is going to be easy to use. This is a popular car over here, I understand. Yeah, anybody drive this car? Anybody? Yeah, people drive this car. Yeah, I don't mean this one. I mean, you may have a different one, but yeah, this is a very popular car here. So you could drive this car. Yeah, anybody here not be able to drive this car? I mean, any drivers couldn't drive this car. You could drive this, couldn't you? Could you drive this one? Yeah, no, this used to be a popular car. But you might not want to drive it, but you could drive it if you wanted to, couldn't you? Yeah, you could drive that one. How about this one? Now, this one's a bit more difficult to drive because the steering wheel's in the wrong place. Yeah, in fact, I got picked up last night at the airport and I went to sit in the driver's seat because that would be the passenger seat where I come from. Yeah. So what will happen here is that you sit in this car and you go to change gear and you open the window. But here's this, the wrong hand is doing this. But you could drive it. It's not that difficult. Could you drive this? This is an ancient tractor. This is fairly easy to drive. It's got a steering wheel. It's got the same kind of pedals. It's relatively easy to drive, isn't it? What about this then? This steers. It goes forwards. It goes round. This is a John Deere digger, but it hasn't got a steering wheel, it hasn't got pedals. We don't know how to drive it. The reason we can drive any car in the world, you don't have to, pass a test to drive a BMW. If you want, you can swap your BMW for a Volkswagen. BMW drivers looking at me going, don't be silly. But if you could swap your Volkswagen for a Fiat, or whatever, yeah? You don't have to pass a test for each model of a car. Why? Because each model of a car, don't tell this to car manufacturers. I know you were talking about car manufacturers earlier, but please don't tell them. Every single car is the same. It's only cosmetic differences between them. And the reason they're the same is if they were all different, we wouldn't be able to drive them. So if every website were different, we couldn't drive the website. So for psychological convenience, every website needs to be roughly the same as every other website. Because otherwise we end up like this. And I suspect you've landed on websites going, where's the menu? You can't find the menu because they've hidden it in some picture because somebody said this would be fantastic. We don't want to be like everyone else. We'll be different. And by being different, you're not convenient. You can't be used. The next thing is likability. This website signals it likes particular groups of people. You can see those down the left-hand side. It's saying if you're this kind of person, if you're interested in this kind of thing, this is where you need to go. It's showing us, the visitor, that it knows about us, the person who's landed on the page. I don't know if you have speed dating here. We were talking earlier about networking and people who go networking. You do a lot of networking here. But if you do speed networking or speed dating is where you have just 2 or 3 minutes to talk to somebody and hopefully at the end of the evening they will choose somebody to go on a date with. And usually you've got two kinds of people who sit in front of these poor people who are hoping for a date. And you've got the person who arrives there and goes, "Hello, my name's John. I've come in my Lamborghini tonight. I didn't really mean to arrive in my Lamborghini, but my Porsche is having a few adaptations to it. And I'm really grateful that I'm here tonight because this is where I have my country mansion. And I stay here at my country mansion. And as you know, banking has gone through a crisis in the last 10 years. So my bonus this year was only $4 million. And then the bell rings and John moves on. And the next person arrives and says, "Hello, I'm David. What's your name?" And she says, "Oh, I'm Susan." And he says, "Hello, Susan. Nice to meet you. What do you do?" And she says, "I'm a school teacher." And he said, "Oh, what age of children do you teach?" And she says, "I teach teenagers." So he says, "Oh, you must teach a subject then." And she says, "Yes, I teach chemistry." And he says, "Oh, do you do explosions and make gases appear in the school laboratory and all those kind of things?" And she says, "Yes, that's what I do. I did that today. Filled the classroom with this blue smoke. The children loved it." And the bell rings and David moves on. Which person gets the date? Is it John, the multimillionaire person with the Lamborghini and the country mansion? No, it's not, is it? It's David. She knows nothing about him. She knows nothing about him. She doesn't know what he does. She doesn't know if he's rich or he's poor. She knows absolutely nothing apart from one thing. And the one thing she does know is that he's interested in her. So when you land on a website that shows it's interested in you, you like it. Because it's shown automatically that it likes you first. We've got to show other people we like them first before they're going to like us. Here is a retailer which is saying, this is a Nordstrom, which is a big online retailer, and they're saying, here we go, if you're a young man or a young woman, this is where you go. And you click on those pictures and you end up where you need to be, looking at clothes for you. And so they're clearly showing you in an instant, a bit like those 3 buttons on that first Latvian website, showing that we know what you want, we're interested in you, so you come along and click on what you're interested in. It's showing that they like you first. The next thing is to be informative. This website has got lots of blogs on it. Lots of information, lots of detailed information. We love information. In fact, we use information as human beings to reduce our risk. So the more information we have, the less risk we perceive something to be. So your website needs to be full of information, and we need to be able to see that when we land on it straight away, that this website is full of information that's going to be useful to me, because then I can minimize the risk that I'm taking. So which banana would you like? Would you like the nice ripe one or the one that's a bit kind of mouldy? Who'd like the mouldy one? No? Oh, you would? Okay. That's very unusual, but most people would like the nice ripe banana. The reason we like the ripe banana is because we are primed deep inside your brain. You're constantly looking for the latest information. You're not looking for old information, you're looking for the latest. If you go onto a website and you see on the bottom of the website the date of the website, and the date of the website is 1997, what do you think? Do you think maybe this website isn't as up to date as one that says 2017? But what if that website was about, I don't know, Newton's laws of physics? As far as I know, they haven't changed in the last 20 years, so that 1997 website would be okay. But unfortunately, instantly, in that 0.56 of a second, we go, this is out of date, we don't like it. And the reason for that is that when we look at food, when we go back through all our evolution, we can see what's happened, and we're primed to get fresh food, because otherwise we died. Because we were eating moldy food, we were eating rotten food, and we didn't live as long. So we have a deep-seated preference for the most recent stuff, the most fresh stuff. So if your website isn't signaling in an instant that it's got up-to-date information, then people are not going to like it. The next thing is about customization. We like things that are individual, stuff for ourselves and for nobody else. The internet is fantastic at personalizing things. Here we can personalize the various options that we can get. There's a menu drop down here which shows us that we can choose particular kinds of options so that we can get out of this website precisely what we want. You know that you can order on this website. Here's a website. You can order a hoodie. You can choose all those different colors. You can choose different kinds of printing. You can choose different kinds of material. You've got lots and lots of options to customize your order entirely to you as an individual. The more your website deals with individuals, the better it's going to be. Your Facebook page is probably very different to mine. Your LinkedIn profile is going to be very different to mine. Everybody's social media is individual. Everything you do on any retailers you go to is individual. They serve individual things to you. The adverts you see on the internet are individually designed to you. Even the searches that you do on Google are individually designed to you. So everything we do on the internet is focused on us as individuals. So if your website doesn't focus on people as individuals, then I'm afraid they don't like it so much. And they, in an instant, go, well, this isn't about me as an individual. I can't customize it. I can't log in. So therefore, I am going to have to leave this website. So they leave pretty quickly if it's not customized to them as an individual. Here is another example of being able to customize things. You can order this bag and put whatever pictures you like on it. You know you can upload pictures and create mugs and t-shirts and cushions and all kinds of things completely individual to you, completely customized to you as an individual. The next thing is being knowledgeable. People need to trust your business. And they can't trust you if they don't think you know your subject, if they don't think you know your topic, if they don't think you know your area, they're not going to trust you as much. So you've got to demonstrate that you can be trusted. And this is a signal that you've got to give people fairly instantly on your website. So here's a website that's packed with knowledge. This is ASOS. ASOS is the world's biggest fashion retailer. It's a UK company. Last year it sold £1.2 billion worth of goods, which nowadays is 1.2 billion euros. So they're pretty much the same, aren't they? So that's a lot of stuff they've sold. And yet, their website is built by people. ASOS is run by people who have no experience in retail and no experience in fashion. When they set this website up, it was an advertising agency that did product placement in the movie industry. That's how this website began. And it evolved into this massive fashion website. So these are people who didn't know about fashion, didn't know about retail, have made the world's biggest fashion website. They have on it this magazine full of information about fashion. The biggest fashion publishing company in the world is called Bauer. They own loads of fashion magazines. ASOS employs now more fashion journalists than the whole of that magazine group, because they are filling their website with knowledge about fashion, demonstrating they understand fashion, which means their customers trust them more because they've demonstrated knowledge. Now, here's a graph that was drawn for me by one of the directors of ASOS when he and I were sitting down one evening, and he said there were two key things that they saw as increases into their sales. That they were ticking along nicely for a few years, and then they introduced their blog, information about them and their products and fresh, up-to-date information. And it was then they saw sales go up. But when they introduced their magazine, when they introduced knowledge into their business and showed they were experts, more people bought more things, and their sales went up even again. So he attributes the dramatic increase in sales at ASOS to two key things: blogging and having loads and loads of content that shows people they know their stuff, they know fashion. So how much knowledge about your sector, about your topic, about your industry, about your profession have you got on your website? Because people will see that you have that content, that knowledge, and they will trust you immediately. So you'll notice that we've been talking about 5 things. So these things are convenient, likable, informative, customized, and knowledgeable. They make up the word click. So if you click on something, if your website gets people to click and encourages people to click, this is what will happen. Now, if you don't like the word click, here's another word. It's not a real word, I know, in the red letters. I tried to get a real word, but I couldn't, especially as I don't speak Latvian. But hopefully that kind of reminds you of what you're trying to do, what you need to do if you want people to make sure that when they search on the internet, when they're looking for the next slide, that when they're searching for anything to do with Latvia, that because you have enabled those 5 key elements of a website, you will get them to click with you rather than anybody else. So it comes back to what I said at the beginning, that when I landed on Google just searching for Riga, I found that building and hundreds of pictures of it. What we want for you is your website to click with people so much that when they're searching for something in Latvia, that they're going to find you, and you're going to dominate things because you have filled your website with so much knowledge, so much information, that there's nowhere else people from outside Latvia could possibly look other than your website. I call that clickology. I don't know what that translates to. But if you do that, then your website will click with people and you will get the attention you deserve. Pay attention to those 5 psychological principles and you will get people from outside Latvia wanting to do business with you. Thank you very much.